evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the MKUltra show. I am your host, Carter M. Nelson. Back with another great show tonight on Thursday. Very excited to be back with all of you. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter one tonight. It's been a slow week if I'm being honest, but nonetheless, the topics I have prepared are they're important. So it's going to be a good one. Very excited to get into it with all of you. So
They're important.
here we
So it's
are.
going to be a
Before I
good
start
one.
the show, I
Very
would
excited
like to
to
ask you
get
guys to
into it
please
with
like
all
and
of you.
subscribe. It greatly
So
helps out
they're
the show.
important. Here we
So it's
are.
gonna be a
Before I
good
start
one.
the show,
Very
I would
excited
like
to
to
get
get into it with all of you.
make it a little
So
bit of a better
they're
place.
important. Here we
for
are.
you and me.
Before I start
On
the
a
show,
side note,
very
we're
excited
gonna
to
put all
get
you
into it
motherfuckers
with
on
all
for a
of you.
second.
Make it a little bit of a
23
better
years ago,
place.
one of
Here
the
we
greatest
are.
human
Before I
beings.
start
On
the
a
show,
side
very
note,
excited to
put all
get
you
into it
Houthis
with
on
all of you.
the
Make it a little bit of a
23, so
better
go
place. Here
check
we are.
that shit
Before I
out.
start the
It's a
show,
fucking
very
banger, and
excited to
it'll change your
get
life.
into it with
And
all of
yeah,
you.
I just
Make it
have
a
to
little
say
bit of
that.
a
So
better
go
place. Here
check
we are.
that shit
Before I
out. That's
start
why
the
you
show,
listen
very
here.
excited to get into it with
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
you.
I
Make
just
it
have
a
to
little
say
bit of
that.
a
So
better
give me
place.
1
Here we
second.
are. Before I
That's
start
why
the
you
show,
listen
very
here.
excited to get into it with all of
Yeah,
you.
I
Make
just
it
have
a
to
little
say
bit of
that.
a
So
better
give me 1
place. Here we
second.
are. Before I
That's
start
why
the
you
show,
listen
very
here.
excited to get into it with
Is
all
it
of
still
you.
messing?
Make it a little bit of a better place.
Give me 1
Here we
second.
are. Before I start the
Let
show,
me know.
very excited to get into it with
Is
all
it
of
still
you.
messing?
Make it a little bit of a better place.
Give me 1
Here we
second.
are. Before I start the show,
Let me know.
very excited to
Sounding better?
get
Fuck.
into it
Fuck.
with
It's still
all of
fucked?
you. Make it a little bit of a better place.
Alright, give
Here
me a
we are.
second.
Before I start the show,
Let me know.
very excited to
Sounding better?
get
Fuck.
into it
Fuck.
with
It's
all
still
of you.
fucked?
Make it a little bit of a better place.
Alright,
Here
give me a
we are.
second.
Before I start the show, very excited to
Sounding better?
get
Fuck.
into it with
Fuck. It's
all
still
of you.
fucked?
Make it a little bit of a better place.
Alright, give
Here
me a
we are.
second.
Before I start the show.
Microphone check. How's it sounding? The Jews are literally messing with my audio. That's so true. So true. It's good? Alright. Awesome. Awesome. So good to hear. The Jews can't stop us. They try to steal my motion. And they're just incapable of doing it. It's hilarious. They come at me, but I'm just too good. I'm too good. The Jews can't touch me, motherfuckers. Hell yeah, take that shit, Mossad. Great point there. But like I was saying, we're gonna go ahead and get right into this. Our top stories for tonight. New Jersey. They are currently blocking a federal investigation of the widespread voter fraud, which was found when they realized their system was automatically registering non citizens to vote when they were picking up their IDs. And there's evidence of at least 400 non citizens who did vote. There is legitimate evidence of it, but they are refusing to turn over the names of these people so that the feds can go after them, which is fucking ridiculous. I mean, we have people coming in from foreign states who are voting in our elections, potentially influencing outcomes. But no, we're not going to turn that over because, to quote Mickey Sherrill, it would be irresponsible to do so. So that's an absolute joke with that. In other news, we have more updates on the Iran war. Of course, that's been an ongoing subject of this show. I've been talking to you guys a lot about Yemen, and more specifically, the terrorist organization, the Houthis, who are operating out of southwestern Lebanon. So, or not Lebanon, excuse me, southwestern Yemen, and have control over the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. So that's a pretty big deal. They've started to shoot at oil tankers of Saudi nationality trying to move through that strait, redirecting them around the Suez Canal. So that is a major ongoing story which has pushed the price of oil to $100 earlier today. So like I was saying, their move to do that could potentially send the world into a global recession, something I was warning you guys about. I believe it was a little over a week ago, and now they've done it. Now they've done it, so big deal. About to drink some Yemenade. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump into our top story tonight, which is the New Jersey voting scandal. And this comes from the Wall Street Journal, tensions between the Trump administration and New Jersey escalated Thursday over non-citizens who were erroneously registered to vote, as the state said it wouldn't give the federal government personally identifiable information that could be used to prosecute up to 400 immigrants who went on to cast ballots. The Justice Department this week asked Democratic Governor Mickey Sherrill for names, dates of birth, nationalities, addresses, and signatures of non citizens the state believes to have voted after they were mistakenly added to the voter rolls during an earlier administration. So, what's going on here? We have legitimate evidence of voter fraud. We've been saying this since 2020. There was significant evidence back then that the 2020 election was in fact stolen away from Trump. And you guys know this. I'm not necessarily a Trump supporter. I used to like him, but he's terribly disappointed us all. On a side note, I saw yesterday that it had been 10 years since he gave his monumental speech where he goes, America, or excuse me, Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. And it was tragic. It was truly heartbreaking to see that. But I'm not necessarily a Trump supporter, but I can still recognize, hey, we likely have voter fraud going on. There is collusion, and we need to get to the bottom of this. And now we have concrete evidence coming out of New Jersey that they were registering non-citizens to vote, and they won't turn any of that over. Why won't they turn that over? Well, because as I previously stated, Mickey Sherrill, the governor of New Jersey, is a Democrat. New Jersey is a very blue state, and nobody benefits more from voter fraud than the Democrats. That's why they are voting so hard against the SAVE Act, something we've been talking about a lot recently, an act which would potentially, or at least should, secure our elections and ensure that you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, which seems like a common sense law that we, for whatever reason, do not have. But the Democrats are pushing against this because who do you think the immigrants vote for? It's the Democrats. And even on that note, the group that votes more Democrat than immigrants are second generation immigrants. Take that into account. These second generationers, even, they always vote Democrat because they're more favorable to their home states, Mexico and the other Central American countries, even the Canadians. So they bring over their bad ideas, their bad policies, and it's just bad for the country. It's incredibly bad for the country, but the Democrats just will never, ever do anything about it. They don't want to touch it because it benefits them. You have to think about politics as a game of a corporation, right? We basically have two monopolies over the entire political atmosphere. You have the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're fighting to control the entire system constantly, right? And the reason nobody else can touch them is because they have monopolized the industry. Our political system is an industry. Everybody in it is in it to make as much money as possible. There are very, very few people who are truly civil servants in the current government. So the Democrats, they want to do what will boost their side of the monopoly the best, what will allow them to consolidate more and more control and more influence over the nation. And what will help them do that? Illegal immigrants voting. They are totally fine with voter fraud. They're not going to investigate dead people voting because every single dead person seems to vote for whatever candidate is blue. So, yeah, they're never going to go into it. They're never going to look into it. And even in a case where we have obvious evidence of it, they're going to protect the immigrants first. And this is why we have to be America first on everything. A lot of people, oh, the Dems are based on Israel now. No, they're not. For one, they're just against the right wing government of Israel. They're still pro Israel. They still are all Zionists. But two, they will always put the immigrants first. Even the ones who are truly anti Zionist, they're all pro Muslim. We see this time and time again. Like Ilhan Omar, she's a retard, but she loves Islam. Clearly. They're all pro third worldist. So they will take the side of these third worlders who are legitimately changing our elections above the American people. It's what I call the feminization effect, you know? You feminize the country and they become overly empathetic to the point where it becomes suicidal for the self. It's like, well, sometimes you have to take your own side, right? Sometimes you have to take your own people first. You have to look at the American citizens and say, well, I come from you, you voted me in, I'm going to protect your interests first. But they won't do that because we've become overly empathetic as a state where we will say, hey, you third worldist who just stabbed a woman on a train, yeah, well, we're gonna cut you a break because you had a rough childhood or whatever. It's like, well, well, I don't think it's the rough childhood. All right. I've seen plenty of whites who grow up in rough areas, and guess what? They don't usually stab Ukrainian women in the throat. I don't think it's the rough childhood, guys. Hey, when the evidence we have about our crime statistics say that people of a certain group are, I don't know, more likely to commit violent crimes even in the highest economic circumstances, I don't think it's because they're poor. I don't think it's because they don't have enough money. I think there might be something else going on here, guys. But yeah, it's just like we have to take our own side. We can no longer take the side of third worldists. We can't take the side of illegals. We have to send them back because guess what? If we don't send them back, they will continue to manipulate our elections. Why do you think every blue state is going to be so concrete blue? Well, we will never ever flip one. You want to know why? Because they've made all of their major cities sanctuary cities, which will go extremely blue. Look at Denver, First District, Colorado, just elected a DSA candidate. You want to know why? Because they turned these cities into sanctuary cities to secure long term ballot protection, essentially. They are protecting their seats by bringing in people who will hurt Americans. But they do not give a shit about the white kid who's getting stabbed, shot, whatever. They don't give a shit about that. You know what they care about? Winning elections. That's the entire game for them, winning elections. It's the reason you see in the UK where, what was it, Henry Nowak gets stabbed by a guy, and they go to treat the guy who stabbed him first because he cried racism. And that's the direction we're going if we continue to allow these Democrats to bring in widespread immigrants. It's bad for the nation. It's clear in the UK. And guess what? You know what all of these DSA candidates want? They want us further to the left than the UK is. And that's like the liberal central of the world. That's where they all reside in their little caves and their little castles, doing the little you know what I'm talking about. You get it. You know the hand signals. But it's a joke, and I would prefer not to live in a place where we take the side of the guy who pleads racism over the side of the guy who's dying on the ground after getting stabbed. But that's what we're heading towards. And that's a major reason why we need to send the illegals back. All of them. I don't care. I don't care if it hurts the farming industry. Send them all back. All right. Look, if your entire corporation, your entire business is run on taking advantage of illegal immigrants to pay them less to do the labor, well, then I don't really feel bad for you. Look, you lost all your workers now and they can't harm Americans anymore. Boo hoo. Cry me a fucking river. No, we need to send them back and we need to secure our elections. And this is why I talk about the SAVE Act so much. I think it could be one of the only good things this administration pulls off. But I doubt it's going to happen because the Republicans are pussies and the Democrats hate this country. So that's the situation we are in there. In other news, we're going to go ahead and jump right into Iran. By the way, this Ghost 7 Up flavor is like the greatest thing ever made. It's incredible. I love energy drinks, and I'm a little bit of a caffeine addict. Wasn't there a majority of immigrants, or at least people with green cards, that voted for our current president? Yeah, there was a solid amount of them. A lot of first generation immigrants voted for Trump. That's what I was actually talking about earlier, where second generation immigrants are actually more likely to be blue than first generations. It's much more likely that first generations come out of a bad circumstance that was created by liberal policies, so they tend to vote red. But then these second generations, they align more with the countries their parents came from, so then they go back to voting blue. But, I mean, I care a lot more than just who they're voting for. I think there's bigger issues than just who they're voting for. But the evidence we have of illegals potentially voting, they all vote blue. All of them. Their children all vote blue. So I want them back. These sanctuary cities, here's the best thing that works for them, is even if the parents of the kids who come here can't vote because they are illegal and we do some work to secure our elections, Well, guess what? Their kids born here because of the birthright citizenship, they are totally legal to vote. Their children who were born here to illegal immigrants are totally able to vote, and they, by mass majority, vote blue. The Democrats are trying to win back the first generation immigrants vote too. That's why in Michigan they're running an Islamist candidate because they're trying to take advantage of the Deerwood vote, the city which is almost entirely Muslim. So that's the situation going on with that. All right, like I was saying though, we're going to go ahead and jump into Iran. This also comes from the Wall Street Journal, and this is on the attack that the Houthis did. The attack sent oil prices racing to $100 on Thursday after the Houthis threatened to choke an important route in the global oil supply and stoked fears that the US-Iran conflict could escalate further. So that's what's going on there. I told you guys earlier that the Houthis were gearing up to an attack, and it would make total and legitimate sense for them to do so to take advantage of what's going in on Iran to try to gain more political influence by controlling the Red Sea and more specifically the Mab al-Memdeb Strait. So they're trying to put economic pressure onto the world to gain their political influence because the entire world recognizes the former government of Yemen as the legitimate Yemen, right? Almost nobody recognizes the Houthis as a legitimate government. They all recognize them as a terrorist organization. That's why, for those of you who know, Yemen is split into two halves essentially. One controlled by the terrorist organization of the Houthis, the other by the officially recognized state. But the Houthis are a militia group essentially who are heavily supported by Iran. Iran does this a lot to a lot of their neighbors where they supply these terrorist organizations in an attempt to increase their influence in the area. I've been talking about this a lot. Israel and Iran, it's all a game about influence in the area. Who controls more of the states, who is ahead in the balance of power. That's why Iran wants a nuclear weapon. We joke a lot about, oh, they've been months away from a nuclear weapon since the 90s, but like I said recently, that's not entirely far from the truth. It's partially true. I mean, they are highly enriching uranium to the point where if they wanted to, they could make a nuclear weapon. And we talked about that yesterday with what's likely going down in Pickaxe Mountain, where they're burying all their enriched uranium. But the reason they want a nuke so bad is because Israel possesses a nuke, which gives them a significant advantage in the balance of power in the entire region, which allows them to diplomatically influence the nations around them essentially through terror. That's a big part of what the Middle East is. They influence each other through terror. That's why Israel is such a despicable state. They influence their Muslim neighbors by terrorizing them constantly. But Iran does the same thing. And that's what they did in Yemen with the Houthis. And now the Houthis are taking advantage of the current situation, closing down the Red Sea, which makes it so the east-west pipeline that the Saudis use to transport oil away from having to go through the Strait of Hormuz and instead through the Red Sea route. Now they can't go south and would instead have to go through the Suez, which means if they want to move any Asia eastwards, they have to go all the way around Africa, which becomes extremely economically stupid, honestly. It's not a smart or an intelligent decision for them to do, which raises the oil prices even higher because if they're going to have to put in that effort, it's going to cost them more. So the Houthis are trying to take advantage from that, and I was talking about how that will likely increase. It will likely drastically increase the scope of this war, which the United States is desperately trying to keep down, along with Iran. Neither side wants this blown out of proportion. That's why Israel isn't currently involved, and that's why the United States is trying to keep Israel out of it at the current moment. They're trying to make sure the scales stays down. Do we like the Saudis? Well, like I was saying earlier, Saudi Arabia is a we are in a way in an alliance with them. We have decent diplomatic cooperation with Saudi Arabia. Yesterday, I was talking about the nuclear deal, and that's becoming a bigger subject today as Trump announced after significant pushback from Israel that one of the things Saudi Arabia would have to do for us to allow them to have a nuclear program, which would have to be for civilian purposes only, would essentially be that they would have to sign on to the Abraham Accords, which means normalizing the relationship with Israel. So we're not super close with the Saudis because the Saudis are in opposition to Israel, but we're trying to change that by giving them the nuclear program that they are seeking. And the reason everybody in the Middle East wants a nuclear program is Israel. The reason why the whole area is destabilized is nukes. And the issue with giving nations nuclear abilities is you can never put that cat back in the bag. Once a nation has a nuclear weapon, not only can you not destroy that nation because they'll fucking nuke you, but two, they're never going to give that nuclear power up because it's just such an advantageous thing on the world scale. So a lot of this destabilization in the Middle East comes because Israel got their hands on nuclear weaponry. That's why Iran's pushing to have it. That's why the Saudis want it now, but we're forcing them to normalize relationships so we don't have two more nations with nuclear tensions because we already have to deal with the Pakistanis and Indians who both have nuclear weapons. So, our diplomatic relationship with the Saudis is improving. It's nowhere near as bad as Iran. It's not as good as it is with Israel, but they're we're in decent cooperation with them, and a lot of people are saying right now, some experts are saying the reason that we are looking into giving them a nuclear program is because we could potentially be telling Netanyahu, hey, because of your behavior and because of we've been trying to make peace with Iran and you keep bombing Lebanon and destroying those peace deals, you're trying to influence our politics to destroy those peace deals while we'll look for allies elsewhere, which is something I've actually been advocating for because I recognize the importance of having some influence in the Middle East because of how much oil it has. But it's very, very likely that we are pushing, or at least this is a move telling Israel, hey, we're going to look elsewhere for allies. We're going to normalize our relationships with the Saudis. We may potentially be looking to befriend the Turkey. We may be looking to befriend Turkey as well, as obviously we recently gifted them a couple of F-35s in trade of them removing their Russian defense weapons. So we may be looking for allies elsewhere with that. Ah. But yeah, as I was saying, with the Houthis, it's very likely that it's going to continue to escalate the war further, and it's going to choke out the Americans even more. And that's what the Iranians want. That's why they pushed for the Houthis to do this. It's because they're looking for every way to economically punish the Americans so that we back down first. This whole war, like I've been saying, it's a waiting game. And we are preparing to strike the Houthis back. We moved one U.S. warship, the USS Gonzalez, excuse me, the USS Gonzalez into the Red Sea to potentially prepare to strike. So that's something going on. There's not official word that we are going to protect Saudi ships attempting to move through the Red Sea yet, no official word that we're going to hit the Houthis. But Donald Trump earlier today on Truth Social made the announcement that there will be major military punishment for Iran and, of course, the Houthis if they continue to strike ships. So this is something that's been ongoing as well that we've been talking about is we essentially have told the Iranians that, look, you hit one of our ships and we're going to hit your infrastructure to essentially destabilize your country. And then the Iranians said back, well, if you hit our infrastructure, we're going to hit the infrastructure of the Gulf states. So Kuwait, Bahrain, potentially Qatar. So these are or not Israel, maybe, doubtfully Israel. Jordan for sure. Jordan for sure. Likely not Israel because everybody's trying to keep them out of it for now, but yeah, that's the situation we have going on over there. The war is continuing to escalate. The prices are going up, which is going to force even more escalation, which means we will likely have to begin bombing the Houthis into submission along with the Iranians. And there's a likelihood that we're beginning to get spread too thin. There's a real chance that the reason the Iranians have begun to actually be capable of hitting US bases, they killed a few of our soldiers not too long ago. And it's very likely that one of the reasons of this is our forces are getting stretched thin, where we no longer can shoot down every Iranian missile. And this also goes for the Gulf states. I mean, they're going to hit these desalination plants to attempt to destroy the drinking water of these states so that they will essentially back out of this and keep the US out of their territories because it's too consequential for them. So, yeah, that's the situation going on over there. I'm going to be again wrapping up this stream. Like I said, it was going to be a shorter one, not as much to cover for today. If you guys have any more questions, please let me know now. I'll keep this stream running for a few more minutes so that any of those you guys can get in before I finish. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please again like and subscribe. It greatly helps out the movement, helps us grow, helps spread the message. So I would greatly appreciate it, and I want you to be part of these early days. I'll do a quick recap now of everything we talked about. The New Jersey voting scandal, which was today's top story. Obviously, the Democrats are continuing to push to protect the identities of these illegals who voted. They are totally okay with voter fraud. They consistently push for it. It's a major, major issue, something that we need to get control of. Hopefully, we can do so through the SAVE Act. In other news, we have the Iran war. The Houthis got involved like I predicted. They began striking ships, which I also predicted. It's driving up the price of oil, which I also predicted. We'll see if Saudi Arabia has to get involved now. We'll see. I expect the Saudis to try to stay out of this because they're in a rebuilding phase. They're trying to boost their economy heavily right now. That's part of the reason they are so interested in this nuclear deal is because with the destabilization of oil, they're trying to look at more options to become a major energy exporter, and nuclear will likely be the future. So they're trying to push for that. So we'll see if the Saudis become interested in getting involved. Likely, the United States will be responsible for attempting to subdue the Houthis like we were previously when they I believe it was last year when they were also blocking this strait. Something that, you just can't count on these terrorist groups to have any remorse. And finally, finally, we have the continuing escalations just with Iran itself. So that's the situations we have going tonight. Thank you all for watching. It's a blessing to be here with you all every single night. I am live 8 p.m. Mountain Central Time, or excuse me, Mountain Standard Time, Monday through Friday. So subscribe to so you never miss an episode. May God bless you. May his face shine kindly upon you. So long. Peace out, and God bless you all.